Yeah, the CIA and the art world. Then that guy that Sergei Guillot wrote how New York stole the idea of modern art.
No, I haven't
You ever
read
read
that.
that?
No,
Oh, that's
I'd
the
like
whole
to.
thing about that. Way before, you know, when we were in New York, we used to hang out with Ad Reinhardt a lot, go to the Cedar Bar,
Mm-hmm.
Smith, and I was like a groupie. Is that really, Chuck? Is that really? Is
Yeah.
that really? You know, kind of crap, you know, but it was really true. And it was. And we did have dinner with Bill de Kooning and Conrad Marcarelli, and both, you know, marvelous guys. I remember de Kooning especially, he's such a hot dog. And
Yeah.
he asked about Jean Varda, who was a painter that nobody ever paid much attention to around here. It's kind of considered commercial. But de Kooning had taught with the Black Mountain, and he just seemed like a really honest, nice person, a nice guy. Then we went up to his house at Springs. He was building it, but it's a weird place. I mean, he was building a place, a mansion, spending millions on it, that was like a huge Walmart or something, with a
Really?
lift to paint the paintings, and paintings with a painting pit where the painting would go down, and it was 60 feet high, 40 feet wide, and place to sit down where you'd have to put your legs out like this to sit down. It was and this guy that we knew, this part of that was working for de Kooning, he said, "This guy's crazy, great." And he's done the fireplace 3 times, and it was like the guy was having a childhood wish fulfillment, and it was idiotic. I mean, hey, he was this little guy. I mean, de Kooning, and he always dressed like a working guy, and he was a very charming. But he always had this sort of direct, honorable presentation. He would say things like, well, I quote him, like, grotesque art is great, it's so joyous. That's what he did to women, and people thought it was anti-women. He said, they're not getting it. He said, it's joyous. And actually, I think he was right. It is, yeah.
I see him that way.
Anyway, yeah, so...
Well,
But the idea of that the government was interested in... Well, when you think about it, of course, it was very, very profitable to them. I think the French were leading the cultural world as the French intellectuals, and the United States was wanted to be the leader, not only in the intellectual world, but scientifically and in the world generally, you know. And
just seems like a progressive choice for the CIA to choose abstract expressionist artists to promote. That seems out of character of how we conceive of the CIA people nowadays. But I think the CIA was new then, and it was all young guys running it, and they were all well-educated Ivy League guys, right? And they had some kind of feeling for the arts, and they knew that the most outrageous, most expressive art would be the best expression of freedom. And they were fighting the Cold War, they thought, and they thought that America represented freedom, and that abstract expressionism was the best expression of it.
yeah,
I don't know, that's the way I think of it. What do you think?
well, you must take it in consideration that abstract art was very, very European, of course, and the Americans hadn't caught on to it the way the Europeans did. And some of the greatest developments in abstract painting were made, of course, by Europeans. And I think that, I mean, they had these dynamite guys. We didn't have anybody like a Picasso. We simply didn't have people of that kind of imagination, nor did we have the support system for them to be able to do what they did as artists, you know. But they had it in Europe for a longer time, I think, and there was a tradition of it. And I think the artists had an attitude of professionalism very different than American artists would like to have had, but they didn't have the support system. Yeah. And so I think abstract expression was very, when you look at the painting, a logical outcome of what was happening in Europe, in French. But the United States wanted to separate out and be equal or more important than France, and I think that was than Europe in general. And I think you're right that there were younger people in a different generation more receptive and more interested. But guys in Russia like Malevich were painting those all black paintings that in the 20s, you know, that Reinhardt was bringing back. Like I think was really one of Reinhardt's most brilliant jokes.
Was what, the black paintings? Yeah.
I could just see him. I mean, at parties, we go to these rich people's parties, and he's always be grinning and saying, "Well, I hope you brought your knife today, Mary. We're going to get him too." And he was the most provocative, brilliant.
Yeah.
And he just, I mean, the more I remember this rich people, he just couldn't stop, and they never got it. They never got it, and I always felt that the things that he wrote about art was going to see how far he could go to be absolutely ridiculous, that they would not say, this is ridiculous, that they would go for it, because they were just hero worshippers, or whatever they were, you know, for the new and everything, you know, and Reinhardt was very smart and very convincing. But, you know, well, you read my interview. I got sued for libel in that interview.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was published in Art in America. No, Art Forum. Phil Leader was the editor then. The Art published it, and I got sued for libel. And Phil called up. He was absolutely frantic. He was still in San Francisco then. It was that long ago. He said, "Oh my God, they're suing us for libel." And I said, "Who?" He said, "Well, it doesn't matter, but have you got the tape?" And I said, "Yes." With the interview with Ad Reiner, I said, "Yes, I do have." And Ad was dead then. And I said, "How can they sue me, because I just recorded what this other person said.
Right.
I didn't say this." Reinhardt said it. He said great things. He said it that who was it? The most famous painter and abstract painter in New York should have been a dentist or something like that. You know, he was saying things like
Pollock
that.
or Rothko. Or...
Oh, Jackson. Jack was just. The only time he could paint a really good painting when he was really drunk. But you know, you have to be that was okay. He said you don't have to be a good person to be a good painter, and Jackson was a pretty good painter actually, but there was other assholes, something like Barnett and Newman. He said, "My God," you know, and then like they would go on. They should have been a dentist, you know.
With the zip, right? And
then there was one. I forgot what it was. He said, and when we were going to print the article, Rad was still alive then. I called him, and I said, "Well, listen. You got a copy of this tape that we recorded, and listen, this guy's going to do it. I've done a small amount of editing, not of changing, but just eliminating stuff, repetitive stuff." And I sent it to him, and I said, "You sure you want to go ahead with this? Because, you know, I've read all the books on libel. I know about libel, and as far as I can tell, there's nothing libelous here. If they want to take us to court, and if they do, great, more publicity for us, you know. And we'd win anyway, so I have no fear of that." And Ad Reiner said, "Great." Well, it turned out later he did know, but he didn't tell me, but it was Clem Greenberg.
Oh, yeah? That's who was suing?
Yep.
Oh, no.
I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
Did Ad make derisive comments about Clement?
I think he did. Yes, in fact, he said, that's right. I got to look up that article. He said, the whole world of art world is so corrupt that the critics are now working for the galleries. That's something like that. And saying, in effect, that Clem Greenberg was actually pimping for the galleries, the rich galleries in New York. It was that was the sense of it. And Greenberg was threatened to sue Art Forum. That's when Leader called me. He was really frantic. He didn't tell me that it was Greenberg. But then he said, they're serious, they're going to sue. I said, well, it's ridiculous. I've got the tapes. Ad's dead. Ad said it. I didn't. Is this libel if you print something that somebody else says and they're dead, so you can't get their permission? And I said, I wish you'd tell me who's going to sue. He said, it's somebody very important in the art world. And I said, all the better, pal. I got a new outfit. I'm ready to go. You tell them, they back off immediately. Yeah. I've been sued for libel twice. You just say, I can't wait to get in court. I just can't wait. And Christo, the same thing. They backed out like that immediately. Yeah. And I think it's that they're bullies, and they expect people to whine. But, you know, they really didn't have a case.
So Christo sued you too?
No.
Tried to, I mean.
If they actually had gotten, first of all, I doubt if they could have gotten it into a court because it's too flimsy, you know. But if they had and we got on the stand, they would have laughed out of San Francisco. They didn't have a shot at it. No, it wasn't a real legitimate case of being damaged. I mean, when you talk about libel, it's interesting because there's certain things that you can't say about a human being in print, even though you can prove that they're true. I mean, it's libelous to say that somebody's a drunkard, Now they say alcoholic all the time, but in those days it was libelous to say somebody drank too much or was a drunkard, even though you could prove that it was true, because it would be libelous. And the whole point of the law was that if you didn't have a legitimate reason in what you were writing seriously to make this point, it would just be idle gossip and deleterious to a person's reputation, and therefore shouldn't be in a court. Which is perfectly fair, I think. And I had no problem with that. And as far as libel is concerned, every journalist reads the books, we know, and then Christo the same was absolutely ridiculous. And it was them, it was even, again, it was something that was printed that somebody else had said, this German painter that I quoted, and that's what I said too. She was really nice, the editor of, what was it? Oh, that magazine that guy made all his money in voting machine was Current magazine.
Oh.
He had a gallery in San Francisco. It was it was a pretty fancy. He had a lot of money to spend it, and I worked with them for quite a while, and they did some good stuff. Can't remember that, but they had she was just a guy with a lot of money and, become kind of well known. He had a fancy gallery in San Francisco. But the editor had been on the art commission of California. Hey, what are you doing, Kinky? Look up, see, he is Kinky.
This is Kinky Friedman.
Kinky Friedman, yeah. But anyway, so that was...
Well, Mary, I don't want to keep you any longer. This is very...
We talked enough.
very important and very interesting, and I'm very glad and thank you for...
No, well,
letting me get it on tape.
No, I appreciate it. It's great, yeah.
Okay.